Whoa. Hey everybody, it's me, StarVox. You know, the PMC on the SPT show. The guy that blasts scabs on woods just to pass the time. Listen, I wanted to talk today specifically about graphics. You all wanted to know more about how I use Amands and MeowShader to make my game look the way that it does, and today we're going to go into depth looking at all the settings that really apply to that particular topic in the Amands entry in the Espionage menu, and also how to use the MeowShader setup, because if you're not familiar with ReShade, I do imagine that it's very confusing and it can be frustrating. It certainly was for me. The first time I ever used a ReShade application was with Skyrim, modding Skyrim back in the day, and if you're familiar with that, you know that it could get extremely deep. There were far too many plugins, a ton of redundancies to look at, and like all kinds of different ways to make the game look either great or terrible, you know what I mean? So that's what we're doing here in the woods today. This is my favorite map. I think it runs the smoothest for the scenarios that I like to choose. And also I think that it looks the best, and I'm also always the coziest in it because the woods just look so good. The forest in Tarkov is all modeled so well and it's so beautiful and I enjoy it a lot. And today, it should really help to illustrate the first portion of what I want to talk about, because the second portion will be in a much tighter setting in the factory, and I'm going to show how the graphics actually apply differently to like an indoor location in Tarkov as opposed to an outdoor location in Tarkov. So let's go! Alright, so firstly I want to show that I've loaded up the crazy raid scenario in Donuts for this particular raid, because we're going to talk about how performance is impacted while using ReShade. And if you're not familiar with ReShade, ReShade tends to have a pretty hefty impact on performance, depending. It can of course be very thoroughly configured and you can give yourself as much performance as you can. But there's usually going to be at least some sort of minor hit to the performance when using ReShade to increase the fidelity of graphics, or like the sharpness of textures, or increase the aliasing, for example, to make far less jagged pixelated edges on all the things in the world, basically. You'll want to watch out for things that sort of like consequences when you crank things like brightness and exposure and saturation, which are things like banding. Textures and also lighting will create this sort of banding effect that's really ugly, and we don't see any of it right now, which is fortunate. Usually in the darker areas you'd see it. Actually, I can kind of see it down there on the rifle, like at the back where the stock connects to the actual chassis of the weapon. And in some other shadowed areas you'll be able to see it more clearly than that. Of course on YouTube it's probably going to be a little compressed, and I apologize for that, but this is the best that I can do. I'm actually deliberately oh my god. Wow, that was super unlucky for him. I'm actually deliberately attempting to bring the performance down in this raid with like crazy raids and ReShade running and all that stuff to see just how bad when recording, like when I'm actually recording this video here, how bad it performs. And so far, not so bad at all. It's actually pretty great. I'm pleased with this. This is really nice. When I do recording for auxiliary things like my my intros or like fun videos and stuff like that, I usually try very, very hard to make the performance as good as I can, because obviously, you know, I want it to be smooth and I want there to be any stutters or problems or anything while I'm doing such things. But right now, the woods is behaving very good. Let's run into this warehouse really quickly and take a look around, because before we even get into the impact of graphics, I would like to illustrate exactly how or why the performance in Tarkov is the way that it is. So let's break away, use the free cam here. I'm going to fly up above the lumberyard, and then I'm going to enable bot debug. F10 should have been the shortcut, there it is. So bot debug shows the positions and the behaviors, and also a bunch of other things I can cycle through. Behavior and location, and their ammunition counts, their health and all that good stuff, and just like a ton of information altogether. So this is great for checking the performance of Donuts specifically to see if bots are spawning the way that they're supposed to. You can see that even with crazy raids selected, it's not super crazy on the woods map. I could go in there easily and adjust the values in Donuts to make more spawns occur. But this is pretty great for performance right now. I can see that there's one guy near me here in the lumberyard, and the rest are quite a distance away. So the bot activities are what tend to drive performance down the most in Tarkov. These guys will run around, you know, sometimes, most of the time, and do things like loot or attack each other, track each other, run patrol routes and stuff like that. And each time they fire a weapon, each time they open a case, each time they interact with the environment, it slows the game down just a little bit. You can see that this guy right here is actually looting. And it sounds like he's injured, actually. Or maybe he's exhausted. Maybe he was just breathing heavily because he ran out of stamina. That might be it. So anyways, all those activities, as large as the map is, which if you've never seen Tarkov from on high before, it's huge. Like, the maps are very, very large. There's a ton of objects in play. There are a ton of bots usually in play. You can, like I said, you can easily increase the amount of bots that are in the raid, and that will very, very quickly drive performance down. You'll see that the more bots are out there, the more that are fighting each other, the more bodies are on the map, for example, the lower your performance will be. Man, isn't it so scary to just be walking along and then BAM! Gunshots that sound far closer than they actually are ring out. I have all these mods going and I'm like, oh, I actually recently saw all the positions of the bots here in this map, and I'm still freaked out because, first of all, it is still Tarkov, and things can happen randomly and strangely sometimes just because things aren't always so well handled. And you never know, maybe like a bot spawned in closer than I expect, and he's just looking down on me, and I might die. Okay, I think we're safe enough over here. Let's take a sit down, open up the BepInEx menu, and first of all, talk about Amands Graphics. Now, I've done this before, but it's good to go through it again and in more specificity. What we're going to do right now is go over all the pertinent settings that I use, because I actually don't change many things in Amands Graphics away from the default to make things look the way that they do. MeowShader in particular as a ReShade application was designed to work well with Amands, so that's why I'm using those two together. So in the Amands Graphics menu, there's these settings here. Of course, you can toggle advanced settings, and more will appear. You'll be able to much more finely tune pretty much all of these settings, actually, right down to the number and letter. But we're not worried about that right now. Here are the settings that I use, and of course I showed this before, but these are the settings that I use to make things look the way that they do here in SPT-AKI 3.7.6. So I keep motion blur on, HBAO, surround depth of field, all these settings at the top are all on. Sometimes I will disable the blur and the motion blur, depending on performance. If I've got like a high bot raid, for example, if there's like a lot of spawns, or I'm trying to do particular quests and stuff and face particular bosses, I may turn those settings off to get better performance, because stuttering and lagging in those firefights is so dangerous. I did disable the Amands flashlight. I noticed that it doesn't seem to be working well for me. I tried to mess with these sliders right here to change the performance of that, but I didn't really get much in terms of success in that way, so I just keep that off. I find that the way that the flashlight looks right now is actually really good. I don't know what changed about it from a couple of versions ago, but it's really nice right now. NVGs, I do have those on in Amands because I use Borkel's NVG mod, and that was designed to work well with this right here. They do indeed work very well together. It's a gorgeous mod combination. The NVG original color I think has to be off in order for Borkel's to work properly, so that's toggled off. Okay, I think I'm safe for now, but like, it's a little spooky, you know? Just a little spooky to have all that activity going on. Oh gosh, there must be a row of spawns that just came into the game. Okay. I have not interfered with these sliders here for the sky color or moon light intensity or anything like that in NVGs. Maybe I will if I should find that that's pertinent, but I don't think... Okay, so these would still function if this is disabled, right? I don't actually know. I have never tried that before. Night ambient light is on, mystical glow I turn on, and also health effect hit I turn on. I just like them. They're immersive and they add more colorful effects to the game, and I like that. Chromatic aberration I have not changed. Health effect painkiller I did turn on. I can't remember if that's off by default or not. Oh, it is. So yeah, I turn it on. Saturation and chromatic aberration I have not changed. So these down here... Alright, so the Amands Graphics features, this is stuff like the actual key that you can use to toggle Amands on and off. Debug mode is on HBAO, but I don't actually know what that means. I don't think I've used debug mode for Amands. Anyways, I haven't actually changed any of these settings right here, nor have I changed any of these. These settings for the specific maps are a little bit too specific for me. I just haven't gone in to figure them out and configure them anymore because I've been so happy with the way that things look. So I have not changed those. In terms of advanced settings for Amands Graphics up here, you can do things like increase the sample count for motion blur and the shutter angle and stuff to make motion blur look better, because by default it kind of does that typical like blurring to the sides of like a bright object. If you're like panning left to right with a red dot sight, for example, you'll probably see the red dot sight multiply left and right as you turn because the motion blur is trying to compensate for that motion. And going in here to increase the values or even decrease them can help that out a little bit. Intensity, saturation, depth of field in particular you can change quite a lot. I have not messed with that at all. That's very specific. I feel like with these very specific settings here, it's almost too much. I would find myself sort of over adjusting things, and by the end I look at it and I'm like, wow, it's basically an art project. I like made a render instead of like playing a game. But you know what, I used to be the same way exactly in Tarkov. Huh, that was kind of strange. I used to be, not Tarkov, I'm sorry, I heard the gunshots cutting off that way and was distracted. I used to be the exact same way about Skyrim. When I was modding it and I wanted the graphics to be like extra awesome, I would, I don't know, spend several hours modding it up to look super cool and turning all the values up and making the saturation really high and like making like this crazy HDR photo printed on like, I don't know, like metal or something that you would see in a museum. And it just has entirely too much pop. To like look around it, it's like, oh my gosh, it's too much. But with this ReShade preset, I feel pretty comfortable. It actually has like an auto adjustment for like your eyes, your character's eyes. So as you look around, panning to look at like brighter light sources or darker areas, the bloom compensates a bit, and like the saturation and stuff. It's pretty wild. So let's take a look at how things are actually without these two things running right now, because usually I've always got one or two things going. Let me disable first MeowShader. This is what it looks like with only Amands running. This is usually how things look in my videos, because I don't typically use MeowShader while I'm recording. If I toggle it back on, you'll notice it's much more vibrant. And I actually really like that. I suppose it sort of destroys that typical drab Tarkov feel, but I don't know, it feels healthier for my eyes somehow. I don't know how to explain it exactly. It just feels good. Anyway, with MeowShader off, I will now toggle Amands. And this is what just Tarkov would look like here in SPT. This is probably super familiar to most people. This is actually most familiar to me, I suppose. It's a very comfortable color scheme, things are very soft, but there's a lot of fog. And the sort of like, I suppose it has its problems, but I really like it. I don't play with it very much anymore because I appreciate the new clarity of Amands, and then of course like MeowShader, because I don't know, it's kind of, I just love it. It just feels so good. I feel like this gives me a bit of an advantage in fights sometimes because I can see more clearly and colors show up more brightly. There are some places where it overexposes and is overly saturated, and let's take a look at why that is right now. If I hit home, I'll actually be able to pull up the MeowShader menu, and I'll bring all active to the top. I've only got 3 things running right now, 3 plugins: clarity, blooming, HDR, and chromaticity. I don't know what that word actually means, if it is a real word. I have to look that up later. But it just pulls up all the configuration settings for whatever plugins you've got down here. And I've gone through and tried to reduce a lot of the intensity of things, like of these values, to make the image look nicer. Because when bloom is high, and like saturation is not reduced, things tend to be way overexposed and way overly saturated. And I can actually give a good example of that right now by changing the time a little bit. Let's make it earlier and make the sky red. Yeah, see? So this is how MeowShader, this preset in particular, is treating the sky during sunrise. It's obviously too pink, it's obviously too red, even though I suppose it doesn't look like totally wrong or anything. It just is not great for this image, and you can see that it has to adjust itself to prevent the saturation on like the edge of the trees and everything when looking past them. When looking past them at the sky, there's this this like bright edge, this oversaturated edge to all the trees. And let me see here. I'll disable MeowShader, and this is what it just looks like with Amands. This is super normal looking. And then Amands off. And this is just Tarkov. You can see that it reinstalled that fog there. Much clearer with Amands. And then MeowShader running once again. This is a lot like Stalker Gamma, isn't it? Actually, you might look up and start freaking out because a storm is about to occur. Oh no, not an anomalous event. So for those reasons, this preset is obviously best for daytime play. Good for the light, good for fighting outside, all that good stuff. And also for fighting indoors, and you're going to see that this looks really, really good in factory. This preset in particular looks really good in the factory map. So, you can have presets, like I keep saying, for MeowShader. This is just one that I have. I've been playing around with several of them. There's so many, like, plugins. If I kind of bring this down, all these here, these options, these boxes that you can check and toggle, are all plugins that you can use to change the appearance in MeowShader. So, let's see here. This one is like version 1.0.1. This is one of the default profiles that it comes with. There's all kinds of wacky CRT effects that you can use. There's one that I pretty much copied from the default one. Here's my Super Bloom preset. And of course you can come up here and usually get explanations about them. Like a lot of these presets actually have like a description, a tooltip for the plugin. So that tells you what each of them does. Now, not all of them, and also not all of them work. As you can see here, this one pops up some warnings that I don't exactly understand. And a lot of other ones will as well. It's kind of a smorgasbord of like intensity. But it's very useful when you really spend some time with it. If you just use the default settings for a lot of those plugins, it's probably not going to look good, or it won't look exactly the way you want to, and you're going to have to go in there and do some configuring to bring things like saturation and bloom down, so that everything is more visible and things are more clear. And also you want to maintain your performance. You want to be able to look around and move around maps like this at a decent frame rate, because, well, you know, graphics are amazing, and that tendency, or that desire, or that sort of impulse to trade performance for awesome graphics is so strong. It's what kept me, you know, like, I don't know, bogged down in Skyrim with my very old first gaming PC. Just really trying to make those textures and lighting systems as good as possible so that I was fully immersed and fully pleased with how good the graphics were. But I'd be running that game at like 21 frames per second, man. You know how it goes. Oh my gosh. I heard somebody. I'm actually really surprised that nobody came over to that area while I was doing that entire explanation. And sorry for the haste of it all. I'm just trying to be timely about all these things. There's so much to explain, and I'd like to get to the next part and do some more demonstrations. Did I get him? Oh, he's still up. Wow, that was a lot of armor, but I got him. Check that out. Ooh boy, that's a nice kit. So an AK-MSN and an AK-105. This thing is not even loaded. Did he steal that from somebody? I'll bet he did. Maybe he found it in a container or something. So as you can see, with both Amands and MeowShader running in this configuration, colors like red and other such things, wow, those stutters, are going to show up much more prominently. And of course that can be reduced. You can always go in and reduce the intensity of any of those colors. Oh, there's the guy I bet he stole the AK-MSN from. I just left him with a bandage and a knife and some goggles, and not very good goggles at that. Well. So I find... Ooh, did you see that lag there when I switched scopes? I love the Tri-Hawk. Such a good optic, but it does have a very high fidelity. I find that in terms of use for Amands and MeowShader, I most typically use the combination, especially like a very strong MeowShader preset, for capturing video clips that I intentionally want to be really cool, or screenshots and stills that I'm trying to also make look really cool. It's not always fully practical just in RAID to play with all the time, and I'm definitely cool with that. I want as much performance as I can get all the time, because I really need that advantage against a lot of these bots. Oh, I thought I heard something. There's one walking right over there. So the reason the blurring actually when I'm moving the scope around is because of Amands Graphics, I think. Or is that the FOV fix? Optic depth of field, yeah. Okay. Optic depth of field is definitely an Amand setting. Oh. Oh my gosh. What's this guy doing? You know what? I got the solution for this fella. He survived. He didn't even turn to look at me. Man, these scavs are so drunk. Hopped up on substances and bad code. Ugh! Unbelievable. If it weren't for SAIN, I just wouldn't even like Tarkov AI altogether. Such an amazing mod. Thank you so much for that. Right, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about here. Let's go to the factory map, because I want to show how ReShade works there. I think it's actually much better. We're going to get a lot smoother performance in terms of like how much more FPS and also more action, because crazy raids in the factory map is a little bit more crazy than in other maps. So yes, we're going to go check things out there and step away from the woods for now, let all these guys fight it out. Alright, now check this out. So this is in the menu. ReShade often still works in the menus of games, and the same is very much true here for SPT. If I toggle it on, you'll see that things change drastically in terms of the way that things appear. There's now bloom on the text and stuff, and all the textures in the background are much clearer, which would reveal banding on some other ones. This one's actually pretty good right now, but if I toggle it off and on, you can see what I mean. Not always advantageous, and it does not look good in every menu. For example, well, actually, this looks pretty good. That's not too bad. The weird thing here is that it's like there's a light being shown on the inventory screen itself, almost like there's like a light on my monitor. But, I don't know, I suppose if the bloom didn't bother you, you could use it this way. It's a little annoying to my eye. It is much more vibrant. I suppose I could just turn off the bloom and everything would look super clear, and I would like that quite a bit. But for now, I'm just gonna run it that way. Okay, here we are in Factory, and things are going to jump off right away. Now, when I have ReShade running in this preset here on Factory, things look very, very cinematic to me, and I like it a lot. It can be overkill without the right configuration, and now, wow, it's just terrifying to go anywhere because there's so much activity. Yeah, this much fighting on pretty much any other map spread out over more distance would have so much more of an impact over my performance, but as you can see, even while I'm recording, things are pretty smooth right now, and that's amazing. Right off the bat, things like bloom and saturation affect this map very strongly, so like all the light sources from above, all the lights on the walls, all that stuff, much more amplified. The glow sticks, wow, the glow stick is almost impossible to see in its own light. So let's sit right here. I'm gonna toggle MeowShader, so that's what it looks like with just Amands, and then Amands off, Amands on. Wow, that's a huge difference, look at that. Amands is such a great mod, ugh. And then MeowShader. I just really like how vibrant it is. This kind of looks like how, I don't know, this is like when I imagine Factory, this is kind of how I imagine the place in my memories. I'm using better lasers, so the laser itself is much brighter than it is by default. I hate how dim the laser has become. Is that a guy? It is. I think I shot him in the head. That was pretty good. So I think that Factory is a great use case for ReShade. I think that, whoa, it's one of the most viable options, because, I think he ran inside there, because performance tends to be so good. It's such a indoor map. There's not much outside of this world, you know, to go on. So even if your PC isn't all that great, you might still be able to run ReShade here on the Factory map and get a satisfactory result. Yeah, so you look at the bloom and everything, it's already... Here. It's already super atmospheric. But as you can see, default Tarkov is very, very dark. Like, it's super dark and gritty. And, I don't know, maybe I just got tired of it after several years. I mean, I really like it still, and I liked it quite a lot in the beginning. But it's just so dark, and my eyes are, you know, hoping for something better. So, with Amands, it's so much more clear. And then ReShade on, I don't know, it just looks new and vibrant. The motion blur from Amands makes things look and feel cinematic. And I still haven't found anyone, which is a little surprising. I know they're over there. Once again, F10 to bring up bot debug, those guys are over there. Even on crazy raids. With my settings configured the way that they are in Donuts, still not getting crazy spawns, so that's why my performance is as good as it is right now. No, I can't see that guy from over here. Those guys are all on the opposite side of the map from myself. So I really think that ReShade is used best to make a game more clear. Yes, it can do easy things like increase saturation and introduce bloom. It can even add things like screen reflections and stuff like that, screen space. It might not, there's like, they're called so many different things. Like, look at this list. It's so large and so very extensive. A lot of these plugins are redundant and do the same things or similar things. A lot are from the same designers and stuff like that too. But a lot will just sort of do extra things. They'll add on more that the game is already doing, and it won't always look good. You can always try everything, and they're all worth giving a shot to because you can achieve so many different looks and styles. Oh my gosh. And there's quite a few that are actually just like sort of, I don't know, novelties. There's an ASCII profile. There's the one we just looked at. There are other very pixelated ones. I saw a Nintendo 64 one in there. You probably saw like the CRT or like noisy analog or digital footage like profile that I tried earlier. There's a bunch of different fake CRT setups to try. Where is this guy? The headset sample. Whoa! Whoa, did you see that? That was kind of new. I don't usually have stuttering like that. So, when recording, I always have the most strain on this game, and that's usually when I get my largest problems. And that was definitely one of them. It doesn't typically happen. He's above me. Above me and behind me. Oh wow, it's like starting to happen more now too. If I just start firing, will it happen? No? Okay. I have to actually be shooting and killing a bot in order for that to occur, I suppose. 17 left in there. Use case also, I suppose, is the inventory. The inventory is super clear with ReShade running in this configuration. This is a little dark and dim. It's not like it's impossible to see or anything, but this looks much more, I don't know, vibrant. Much nicer. I do see that it's affecting like the color of the text here for the count on the water. Don't know why that is. So if you're going to use MeowShader, just like with using ReShade in any game, I would advise that you start small and build up, and also sort of break down some of the more intensive presets and plugins to make them perform and look better overall. It would be super time-consuming to go through each and every one of these, but if you want me to, I will make another video trying to go through all of the functioning ones and see just how many profiles we can come up that work well together. I think that it's much more practical just to try to find something that works well to make the game more clear for you, because everybody has different vision and everyone sees colors differently, all that good stuff. It's definitely worth it to see what is what's going to bring your game up, what makes you feel more immersed in SPT, because that's kind of the most important thing, isn't it? It's actually the very most important thing, is immersion. SPT is special because it allows us to configure this sandbox Tarkov experience and sort of like have it be as true to ourselves, or as true to itself even, as we can make it to be. And that means different things to different people. For me, that means I basically want to, I don't know, be a weirdo and make it so that I feel as immersed in this location as I can, and make it feel as cinematic and like, I don't know, cinematic and charismatic as I can. Because all this stuff feels so cool to me, and I like being involved with it, and I like messing with all the options and getting things to look cool and spending a lot of time with it. It's just like character creation, you know? If you're gonna be prideful about a character that you're making, and if you really enjoy the process, then you often spend a long time doing that and making tweaks and adjustments that might seem subtle, but they're just bringing you that much closer to your true vision of whatever it is that you're doing. Anyway, that was a very long way of saying that you should play the game the way that you want to. There's sort of a stigma online about the Misery Olympics of Tarkov, where it's sort of designed to be played in as, I don't know, as hardcore a way as possible. The disadvantage is what makes a skilled player really shine in this arena. Although that's not always true, because Tarkov is full of confusing and often problematic meta, and that's even more so, you know, true for the multiplayer experience. So being able to tailor it to just the way you'd like to have it is very important, especially in these days when life is so busy. There's so many things going on, you know, players don't have the time that they need to get as far as they want to in live service games anymore. The important thing is that you're having a good time, and it's very much important to have a good time with video games. Don't forget that Tarkov is actually a video game, even though it's a really cool and robust, very violent simulator. It's still a video game. You still bought it to enjoy it in your free time, because video games are fun. And Tarkov should also be fun. I think SPT-AKI makes it much more fun. Certainly for the individual. Oh, there he is. Been hearing that guy's footsteps forever. Oh my gosh! Parkour! So, let me know down in the comments what you think of Amands Graphics and MeowShader or ReShade in general. I know most SPT users probably do install Amands Graphics. It's so highly recommended and it's so obviously useful. It's definitely at the top of the File Hub's, like, featured mods list, so if you haven't used it, would you like to use it? Do you want to know more about it still? We can definitely go into even greater depth to make things look even more different, I suppose. Now, I apologize, I won't be able to increase my resolution. I'm still stuck at 1080p for now. Pretty soon, hopefully, we'll be getting up to 1440 so that we can have even more pixels to work with in terms of things that can change with Amands and MeowShader or ReShade in general. But also, let me know if you like ReShade, if you use MeowShader. I saw that it was getting a little bit more prominent the other day. I was seeing a lot of conversation about it on Discord. Let me know if it causes performance problems for you, because I know that certain PC setups will struggle with even the lightest plugins here, so let me know how that's going for you. Let me know what else you'd like to see, and oh man, I'm kind of afraid he was running this direction, but I think he went off in that direction. The next episode of the SPT show will be another deep dive into SAIN, the Realism Mod, and Donuts. We're going to go into, that'll be probably a longer video than this. We're going to go into a lot of detail about how those things work and how they work together, and how necessary I think they are for the SPT experience. Be sure to join the Club StarVox Discord server. There's a lot more going on in that place than I expected. A lot of helpful folks. We've got devs in there. We've got fun players in there. And of course I'm in there, and everybody loves to talk to me. Huh! You can support Club StarVox on Patreon now. I've got the link in the description. Also, the Espionage album is available for purchase up there. Check that out. Oh. Huh. Okay, everybody. Version 3.8 is still coming. They're still working on that. If you need more information, be sure to join the SPT Pub Discord server. That's where all the info is. They post their announcements there. Are they gonna do anything? Oh, I see. They're waiting for me to end the video. Okay, sorry everybody. Listen, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Let me know what else you'd like to see in the show, and you have a great time with SPT. Trust me, it's possible. Oh gosh. There we go. Double kill to end the episode on. Oh yeah!